Were you able to see?
Yes, it's on the screen. If you want to scroll one time, just so we can ensure it works.
It's not scrolling. Okay, let me do something different.
Yes.
Scrolling?
Yes, it sure is. It works. Perfect. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the clerk letting you know that we are now live on the internet.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Hey there, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's nice to see you.
You too. Well, nice to hear you as always. I never get to see you.
Have a great meeting.
Thank you.
And Sheriff Smith's office, would you like to do a mic check? Member Christine Clifford, how are you?
Meeting positions, even though we.
I'm well, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
We sure can, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Garnett, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we sure can, thank you.
Thank you.
I just had a request from someone in the public asking if the captions could be turned on.
Member Clifford, the captions are on.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairperson Chavez.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's nice to see you.
Thank you for clerking us.
Dave will be your clerk today.
Okay, thanks.
Phone number ending in 305. If you could please identify yourself. Caller 305.
We may have to remove that panelist if they aren't able to respond. I've asked them to unmute.
Greetings. I'm not sure if this would be my phone number. It shows different for Santa Clara County Corrections. This is Lieutenant Rocha Sanchez with the Sheriff's Office.
Okay, are you here in someone's place today?
I was assigned to represent the Sheriff's Office in case I did need to speak.
Okay, thank you. Can you give us your name one more time, please? We'll rename you, and so your phone number's not there.
Sure. It's Lieutenant Maria Rocha Sanchez.
Dave, I hate to bring this up again, but a member of the public has texted me and said the captions aren't showing up. I don't know if it's her computer or ours. If someone could.
We have captions running within the meeting, and we have captioners also working outside the meeting, so they may need to turn them on in their browser. I'm not sure what kind of browser they're using or anything like that, so we're not able to provide tech support. I apologize.
No, that's okay. Thanks very much.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We're gonna will you?
Recording in
Is the
progress.
meeting already begun recording?
I just started the recording, but if you'd like me to pause it, I can certainly do that until you
No.
are ready to go.
No, perfect. I just wanted to know if we could start. And so I want to welcome everybody to our Reentry Network meeting for August 11th. And I'm going to ask if our clerk can call the roll.
Good afternoon. What I would like to do, Madam Chair, if it's okay by you, I would like to go through the list by seat number to capture the folks who are here, and then go back a second time in case we missed anybody who logs in during the roll call.
Perfect.
Okay, one moment, please. Chairperson Chavez.
Here.
Sheriff Smith. I believe Sheriff Smith is here. Okay, we'll come back. Member Tomalinas. Member Zahner. Jeff Smith or Gary Hersig. Okay. Chief Garnett.
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Cody or Rhonda McClinton Brown. No. Member Esparza. Member O'Neill or Damon Silver. No. Member Rosen or David Angel. Member Nikolai. Member Menacucci or Angela Shing.
Here.
Thank you. Member Terrell? Member Mills?
Here.
Thank you. Member Dewan or Steve Olmos? Member Gaxiola? Member Fisk or Michaeline Reagan?
Here, thank you, Mr. Fisk.
Thank you very much. Member Marquez or Key Lee? No. Member Aaron O'Brien? Member Amador LeBeau or Member Trinidad? No. Member Williams or Christina Yee? No. Member Christine Clifford?
I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Judge Manley?
Present.
Thank you, sir. Member Hernandez? Consuelo
Present.
Hernandez, thank you. Member Day? Dr. Day, I think you're here, is that
Present.
correct?
Yes,
You
I'm
are, thank you
present.
very much. Member Crocker Cook or Wes Mukayama? Okay, Member Vijeni?
Present.
Thank you very much. Member Mata, Anthony Mata? No. Member Halcon? Member Amanda Clifford? Member Kendrick? And Supervisor Ellenberg?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. We currently have 12. We need 17 for a quorum. I would like to ask if there are any members or alternates that I missed during the initial roll call. Chief Garnett, I have you.
Can I just say something quickly?
Sure.
Public Defender O'Neill let me know that she didn't get a link. I also didn't get a link, and I was able to get in a different way. But if somebody could send her a link, that would be good.
Actually,
Okay.
what I would just request is if the clerk could send everybody a link. I've received, I think, 4 texts of the same nature.
We've received a few as well. I believe there's a hiccup with Zoom. So let me go through that list again, and I will send those links out again. I apologize for that. It appears to have been a system-wide issue. So give me just a few moments and I will resend those. Madam Chair, if you would like to continue with the meeting, we can certainly do that. Or if you want to just hold on for a few minutes while other folks are logging in, it's your call.
Thank you. I think what I'd like to do is, if it's okay, we have a few public speakers, public commenters. Oh, wait, David, you know what? I don't want to distract you. Why don't you go ahead and do what you need to do? We'll just take a minute.
Okay, I apologize for that. Give me just a moment.
Yeah,
Madam Chair, this is Lori Smith. I'm sorry I couldn't get unmuted on time. I am present.
Okay,
Thank
one
you.
moment. We've got, I believe we have you in the count, Sheriff Smith. Let me finish resending. This is going to take me just a couple of minutes because of the number of folks. So I apologize for that. And if someone has been in contact with you, Madam Chair, you can go ahead and let them know that links have been resent and they should check their spam folders as well.
All right. And I'm texting people as we speak.
Yeah, and I should be done in just a minute here. I'm halfway through.
No problem. And and a number of them are on the public attendee site. So I'll just
Right.
remind everybody that if you could, I'm just looking at these numbers.
If there are members who are on the attendee side, they can raise their hands and we can promote them to panelists. And I will check that as well once I'm back in the Zoom meeting screen. I'm still
No
finishing up the invites. Okay. I appreciate your patience. Thank you. And that, I believe, is everyone. Okay, so all panelist invites have been resent. Folks should be checking their spam folders to make sure that they don't have anything. But I think we should be good as people are logging back in. We'll keep our eyes open for them.
Great. And I see Miguel got on. I'm just looking to see. And Cora.
Yes, I am on.
Yeah, so Cora's here. Member Tomlins is here. Member Marquez is here. Okay.
I see the public defender.
Okay, there's Molly O'Neill. Thank you. That gets us to
Aaron,
15.
okay. Yeah, I see Aaron and Rose Amador. I'm looking for Rose to see if her link came.
Hi, this is Maya Esparza. I'm here. I had some issues with the link and I'm on if you need the quorum.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That gets us to 16, and I see Aaron O'Brien is here, and I believe that gets us to 17, and we'll keep an eye on folks as well as they are logging in. But for now, Madam Chair, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it, and I apologize for the mix-up, but you do have a quorum.
Great. And let me just see, is Rose Amador on? If she could.
I'm looking for her. I don't see her just yet,
Okay.
but I did resend her invitation.
Great.
Oh, there she is. She's here.
Oh, great. Perfect. And I see Wes. Great.
Mhm.
And Gary. Excellent.
Gary's here. Okay. Yeah, now we're over quorum, so we're good, and we can log in everybody's times once we get the meeting done. So thank you for that, Madam Chair.
Great. And Marianne
Just come from
Dewan.
a 3-hour meeting. Let me just say, hey.
So
Okay.
welcome everybody. We're gonna start again. I think we've got David, since you have everybody's names, I don't think we need to do the roll over. I think we're in good shape.
We are fine. We have the members who are here. I just want to make sure that I've got everybody that we didn't get the first time around, but like I said, Zoom generates reports of who logs in, so we should be able to nail that down afterward.
Great. And so we'll go to item 3, and this is to approve the consent calendar and any changes to the agenda. And if we could just, I'll ask for a motion to approve consent, and that is a way for us to know everybody who's here.
I move. Judge
Thank you, Judge Manley.
Second.
A second. Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg. And I will ask then we get a roll call. If there's any public speakers on the consent calendar.
We had I believe a public speaker for public comment, Madam Chair. Did you want to circle back to that item?
You know what? Let me do consent first, and then we'll come back to public comment if that's okay.
Okay, that's fine. We
probably doesn't make any. Never mind. If you are attending the meeting and you'd like to speak on the consent calendar, raise your hand. If you'd like to speak on public comment, this would be the time to raise your hand. I'm sorry. If you'd like to speak on the consent calendar, now would be the time to raise your hand. If you'd like to speak on the consent calendar, God, Cindy, anybody want to speak on the consent calendar? If you would raise your hand, we'll take you on consent. Okay, we'll take those speakers.
Okay, how long would you like to give these speakers, Madam Chair?
1 minute each, please.
1 minute each. 1 moment, please, while we set the timer. We'll bring that up as soon as it's ready.
Yes, I didn't find it. I'll send it to you.
Our next speaker is Mary Bagatellos. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi there. I just wanted to address the committee and thank you very deeply. I'm a parent of 2 FASD affected people, and they are now adults. And I have to say, to see the work that's gone into the prevention campaign, the awareness campaign, and for all future efforts that are going to be put forward on behalf of that population, I just deeply want to express my appreciation. And, please keep up the good work. It is fantastic. Thank you so much.
That concludes our request to speak on the consent calendar, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Could you do the roll? I'm sorry, do the vote. Thank you.
Chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Member Smith. Sheriff Smith.
Yes, present. Sorry, I'm having problems with my button.
Thank you. Member Tomalinas.
Yes.
Member Garnett.
Yes.
Member Esparza.
Yes.
Thank you. Member O'Neill, Molly O'Neill. Did we lose her? We'll come back.
I'm here and I replied yes. Sorry.
Thank you. We can hear you now. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Menacucci.
Yes.
Member Mills.
Yes.
Member Fisk.
Yes.
Member Marquez.
Yes.
Member O'Brien.
Yes.
Member Amador LeBeau.
Yes.
Member Christine Clifford.
Yes.
Judge Manley.
Yes.
Member Hernandez.
Yes.
Member Day.
Yes.
Member Vajeni,
Yes.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes.
Were there any members that I missed on that roll call?
This is Pablo Gaxiola. I just logged in.
Thank you, Pablo.
I'm
And
an alternate, West Mukuyama.
thank you. Pablo, what is your vote on the consent calendar, sir?
Saying I didn't hear it, and I wasn't at the last meeting.
Okay, thank
This
you.
is
And David,
member
this,
I'm sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Okay, thank you. This is member Dewan, and yes.
Member Dewan, thank you.
Member Hersig, yes.
And Member Hersig, yes. Thank you very much. I believe that covers everyone. Okay, Madam Chair, that passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go back to public comment. And this is an opportunity for anyone to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee.
We currently have 2 speakers, Madam Chair. How long would you like to give them?
We'll do 1 minute each.
All right, one moment, please, while we get the timer up.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Molly M. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Molly Macleod, and glad to be here with you this afternoon. I am the person who had sent a text to Christine about the captioning. But for folks that don't have somebody in their phone list to be able to reach out to for accessibility practices, the county should have a contact person, because when it's in webinar mode, there isn't a way to be able to send a message about the issues. And all the captions are working now. At the time the message was replied back verbally that they were on, they may have been turned on, but they were not actually in effect on either my iPhone or my Mac. And so would like to encourage a way to have accommodations to be able to check in, because I have sent emails previously asking that captions be turned on automatically, and there's still some hitches in the process that I know we can make progress with. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. Oh, Scott went away. It looks like he may have lowered his hand or left the meeting. That concludes our public speakers, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Molly, I appreciate that reminder. We're going to now go to item 4, and this is to receive a report from the Behavioral Health Department relating to activities or initiatives to reduce the prevalence of and assist persons affected by fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. And we're going to turn this over to Bruce Copley.
Thank you. I don't have access to the let me see if I can share my screen. Oh, here we go. Okay. Are you able to see the PowerPoint?
No.
Okay, just how about now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just learning this. So good afternoon, committee. This is Bruce Copley, and I'm here to give you an update on our fetal alcohol syndrome disorder report. I first of all want to thank the parent advocates and Megan Leon, who is my director of prevention services within the department, for the work that they've done to date that will be reported in this summary of where we are. We have 4 elements that we had originally discussed with the committee. The first is public awareness and prevention, which is the most active of the projects we've developed, and that's what the PowerPoint will discuss. We've worked with First 5 Santa Clara County in developing a public awareness campaign to educate women of childbearing age about FASD and the harmful effects of drinking alcohol during pregnancy. It was the campaign was developed on a focus group research basis by conducting with women in the campaign who are of the population who are pregnant. It includes the social media, digital, mobile marketing, video, and also VTA billboards on buses. It's in both English and Spanish. The committee launched the campaign on the 26th of July. and will run through the end of September of this year. Additionally, an evaluation will be conducted on the results of the campaign and the impact it has had on individuals within the community. The second objective was a screening, assessment, and diagnosis. And with the collaboration of a FSD advisory committee that we initiated in January, we've begun to look at assessments of prenatal alcohol parents with screening, diagnosis, and treatment. Also, we have worked with King Connections to look at broadening the screening that's done in the 0 to 5 age bracket, and additionally talked to Valley Medical Center and First 5 about administering the 4 Ps, which is a brief screening to help begin to identify individuals that are at risk for alcoholism or alcohol use while they're pregnant. We've also initiated a monthly meeting that will culminate in September with the Department of Corrections, Custodial Health Services, Custody Health Services, Pretrial Services, Probation Department. We also hope to have the District Attorney's Office and the Public Defender has also indicated they want to be part of that group. What we want to do is look across those departments at what is currently happening with screening and develop additional screening tools that might be applied within those departments to help identify individuals that have FASD. Primarily, the group would like to look at individuals coming into the Department of Corrections to help diagnose early on individuals with FASD. The results of this discussion will come back to the December meeting with the committee in terms of what next steps will be. Thirdly, we targeted service interventions to improve outcomes for individuals who were affected throughout the programs. And this will be identified from the screening assessment diagnosis. Will then go out and work with departments to look at how they can apply screening tools to, again, help identify individuals that have FASD. And finally, we have the cross-system practitioner training and consultation. We've worked with Social Service Agency, met with them in March, and begun discussion about developing a formal training program with them that will be able to be used across the county, again, through departments that would have a touch point with individuals that possibly have FASD. Let me stop there and give you a brief overview of the campaign that, again, I mentioned we're just starting. Again, as I said, the public awareness campaign started on July 26th. We'll go through September 5th. There'll be ads on air with YouTube's 15 and 30-second videos. A website has been developed, social media, again, placards on the sides of the buses, mobile phone communication through geofencing, and a website, notevenone.org. Again, it's in the campaign will be in both English and Spanish. And the video, I'm sorry we don't have the video, but the video is a 30-second video that, again, helps individuals understand the importance of not using alcohol during pregnancy. With that, I'm open to any questions or additional information you would like me to provide the committee today. Cindy Chavez.
Thank you, Bruce. And perhaps one of the things we could do is send the video link out to everyone when that's available. I would really like to have an opportunity to see that. Let me first start by just really saying, to follow up on Bruce, one of the earlier things you said is really just to thank the leaders in the community who really brought this to our attention. And so Bruce, to you, and I wanted to acknowledge Miguel Marquez for bringing this back. And so I will go to the public to see if there's any public comment on this, and then I'll come back to the board for any feedback or comment?
We currently have 2 speakers, Madam Chair. Actually, that number is adding on now. We're currently at 4. Would you like to keep the timer at 1 minute for the rest of the
Yeah,
meeting, just so I don't have to keep asking you?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks.
Okay. All right. 1 moment, please, while we get the timer up. Our next speaker is Barbara Hansen. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
I want to say that there's probably going to be a car accident about this, because every time I see a bus, I yell and scream so loudly, I nearly go off the road. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's, as I said the other day, a community can dream, but it's only when leaders such as Cindy and the rest of you hear our dreams that it goes into flight and lands on a bus. I do want you to know that we're meeting with Congresswoman Lofgren next week to talk about a $75 million federal grant to be dedicated to FASD throughout the nation. We would appreciate your advocacy with this, and we can't tell you enough how much this makes us want to cry and to yell and to scream. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Molly M. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hello, my name is Molly Macleod. I am hopeful that the outreach materials are accessible. So images having alt text or image descriptions, videos having captions for spreading the word. I also want to note the use of acronyms, fetal alcohol syndrome disorder. I remember going to many summer camps with youth, and it sounded like a couple of the parents have young adults, but getting that feedback from the people who are living with fetal alcohol syndrome, and then also recognizing from a disability access that it's not the, not the stigma because some of the nicest folks who had strongest, hey, get treatment for alcohol or drugs were the people who were affected from birth on. I also want to make sure families are not ripped apart, that actual treatment, voluntary treatments provided. Thank you.
Next speaker is Catherine Page. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you and good afternoon. And adding my voice to the ones that thank you and send you great congratulations. And just a tiny editorial correction. We don't say fetal alcohol syndrome disorder, it's fetal alcohol spectrum now. And it's 5% of the general population. And the fact that Santa Clara County is taking this on across systems and across ages is kind of miraculous. And as far as we know, the first one in the country to take this on as a county. So we in FASD NorCal are just all a tingle and delighted to share as much more information as you guys can sit still for. So big thanks, and talk to you soon.
Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. I understand a lot of us are having technical difficulties today. I've been kicked off this meeting now about 19 times, so I'm not sure if there's other people from the public that are facing that. I'm sure David's seen the hand go up and down. I'll just make it quick. I'm not on topic technically right now. I did try to chime in for public comment and the consent calendar. I would appreciate Supervisor Chavez if you would allow the proper time for the public to talk. I know these meetings get busy. I know you guys have a lot to do. I think the 3 minutes of me discussing the failures in our reentry system would have been beneficial for all of you and the public to hear, because I am advocating for thousands of people that are basically out in the field. You know, I'm not going to sit here and cry over spilled milk. There are appropriate times. I'm just wondering over all these years why it gets down to a minute or 30 seconds. That feels just like a slap in the face. So I'm going to log off this meeting and go, you know, actually help somebody out here. Thank you.
That concludes our request to speak.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Do any of my colleagues have any comments or questions on this item? Christine?
I just want to add my voice as the adoptive parent of someone with this disability who's now an adult. He will have this disability his entire life. This is a cradle to grave, 100% preventable disability. And I just really can't say enough about our county and stepping up to the plate to deal with this across all systems. I think Dr. Page could tell you there was a study recently by a man named Ed Riley down in University of San Diego on the jails down in San Diego, and they screened for FASD and found that 30% of the population met that criteria. This, greatly impacts judgment and abilities across a long range of skills, and the more we understand about these people when they walk through our doors, the better we can serve them. So I just really want to extend my gratitude to the county, to the board, to Miguel, to Cindy, to everyone who's been involved in launching this, and to the behavioral health folks. This has just been a remarkable thing to witness. And for me, a 20-year journey. So thanks very much. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you, Christine. And just a very special thank you to you and Barbara. And you both remind me that, a mother's love can change the world. So thank you both. Cora?
I would like to ditto Christine's comments, but also ask a question. My hearing aid was on low, so I didn't hear you when you said the materials, the campaign materials were in English and Spanish. But did you say Vietnamese as well?
No, ma'am. At this point, it's English and Spanish.
Okay, but we do have plans to have it in the other languages?
We can take that back to the planning committee. Again, we can take that back and come back in December with a report for you.
Please, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Miguel?
Thank you. Just wanted to, we hear lots of thanks to the county, but really I want to give the thanks to the folks who brought this important issue to our attention. You guys have been incredibly supportive, providing us lots of information. And then I want to thank the staff who took it and has brought it this far. And what I look forward to is the further development of this body of work, this very important body of work. So thanks all around. It's, they say it takes a village, and it really does, but thank you to those who brought the issue to our attention in the first place.
Thanks, Miguel, and thanks for all your work on this. We appreciate you. Wes?
I just came out of the MHSA meeting, and only 10% of their treatment is to Asian Pacific Islanders. I wanted to remind you that that's a small portion, since Asian Pacific Islanders are the largest minority group in Santa Clara County, and I'll even outnumber whites, I believe, at this point. And I asked Bruce about their statistics in regarding languages and treatment to Asian Pacific Islands. He didn't, as he said, he's going to look it up. But the fact that Vietnamese is not in this language is part of the reason why there's such a low rate of treatment and penetration to the Asian Pacific Islander community. And I would like to find ways that could be increased. And just that is enough to say we need more work on that in terms of cultural competency and cultural penetration.
Thank you, Wes. So here's just some next steps I'd like to recommend. One is that when this comes back in December, that we can see the work plan and a timeline that really looks at the awareness raising, the screening assessment services, and training, just those buckets, so that we're aware of how that's proceeding. The second is I'd be very interested in making sure that the fetal alcohol, I'm trying to remember, Dr. Page, fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and TBI work, the traumatic brain injury working group can actually meet. I'd be very interested to see where there's overlap and work that might be able to be streamlined, especially as it relates to assessments, services, and training, since we're out doing these trainings. And then and make sure that the traumatic brain injury report will also be on our December meeting. The third is that the December meeting should also include recommendations on how to incorporate the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder screening assessment services and trainings in both adult and juvenile facilities, recognizing that those are very different and may have different approaches. And then finally, I do want to ask, and my office will make this possible, that we connect the diagnostic center that is being developed at O'Connor Hospital with the pediatricians that are leading that effort with the fetal alcohol spectrum disorder team, just to make sure that they do a check-in, and we'll make that connection, Bruce, with you all. And again, that would be a motion. Oh, and I'm sorry that we do come back with Vietnamese language materials. That's just a must across the board. So that would be a direction that I'd like to give. And we're receiving a report, so I will look to Miguel to see if that framework is comfortable for staff.
Yeah, we can incorporate a report back on those items for December.
Great. So with that, Wes, did you have another comment?
Yes, the other thing is at the last meeting, we talked about the long waits of what people are in there for 12 years before they go to court. And we were going to look at that as well. Why such a long delay? And how can we reduce the waiting time for that?
Thank you, Wes. All right, seeing no more action on item 4, and with that direction given to staff, we're going to go to item 5. And item 5 is in response to, I think this was in response to a question that I had about the status of integration of bed usage and capacity data. And I know Sherry's going to walk us through this piece.
I believe that is going to be my section. This is Brian Wagner from Behavioral Health.
Okay. Welcome, Brian.
Thanks. Let me just present my screen here. So I think this was just a follow-up from a previous dashboard demonstration. That's the understanding that I have regarding behavioral health dashboards and the pilot that we're moving forward with in terms of rolling those out. So it was in order to give a brief update on the status of where we are with that project. Hopefully I'm on target with what the expectations were here. The status of, so we've got our NetSmart My Avatar pilot coming up in the not too distant future here. We've, just as a reminder, started our My Avatar use in the department 9120 and have been working ever since to get the CBOs connected. Once we have established the connection with our contracted providers or our CCPs, as we have listed on the slide here, county contracted providers, then the data will be flowing straight from our system to our dashboarding that we have within My Avatar, which is just called the KPI dashboards. And so we wanted to talk just a little bit about the updating of slot and bed availability with that system and kind of our project status on the rollout. So in terms of the update to the pilot, which was asked for, we have just some clarification to make sure that we're all understanding the pilot in the same way. The pilot in this instance refers to the integration between BHSD's instance of My Avatar and one of the large CCPs or contracted agencies, Momentum, and their electronic health record system. So the target date for starting that is 10/1, and that would be including the subsequent work that is required. So They are an agency that is already on my avatar, which is helpful, should ease the integration. We're currently in the process of doing testing to make sure that everything is working and the data will flow across appropriately. And we're having weekly meetings with them and doing other testing on the IT side of things to just assure that the API, the application programming interface between the two systems prior to go live, is functioning in all the ways that we would expect it to. After the 10-1 go live, there's going to be a 90-day evaluation period, which will take us through the beginning of 21 to assure that everything is working correctly. And then we would start the subsequent rollouts of the remaining contracted agencies 1/1/21 through late 22. A handful of things are factors for success in terms of the pilot and the rollout. And I've bulleted out some of those things here. It's a large project with a lot of complicated data that has to be done just in the right way with all the right crosswalks to make sure that everything is matching in the right places and the data systems are coming across correctly. So a handful of those things are listed here. Finalization of the contract changes, because there are some process changes with the CBOs need to happen. Getting our provider manual updated and in place. We've got some claims and payments resources that need to be secured and trained up to make sure that this will happen for the claims side of things well. Then we'll be cutting over, making that kind of hard change over from the old system to the new, with each, first with the pilot and then with subsequent rollout of the other contract agencies. Then we'll have that pilot 90-day period to evaluate, make sure everything is going well before we proceed further through the rest of the contract agencies. So all of those things need to go well, of course, and we expect that they will. There's been a lot of work put into them to make sure that that's all going to happen well for us to proceed throughout the rest of the CBOs and integrate fully all of our contract agencies. Once that happens, we have specific forms that can be filled out and directly providing data into our system. So those are slot and bed availability forms that can be filled out by the contract agencies. And so with the integration of each additional CBO, we will have that much more information available to us about the contracted agencies' slot and bed availability in the behavioral health system. And so all of that information can be much more easily aggregated, visualized, and presented. They can, that data will come into our KPI dashboards that we have native to the MyAvatar system. They will additionally, be available for reporting and/or quick views and so forth out of our instance of MyAvatar. And then, so we just wanted to kind of give an example of what a brief census report would look like. In our current instance of MyAvatar, we have the census report for Evans Lane. Evans Lane is one of our internal county programs, and so this is just an example of what a report might look like as we're able to pull them up for a given residential, for example, program. But this would be the case for slots as well as for our outpatient programs as well. There's a lot of information available here that may be relevant to various different operational folks and so forth. The highlighted section at the bottom gives us the licensed beds that we have, the current people, the current beds that are occupied, unoccupied, the percentage, and a little bit of demographics around the genders and the ages and the length of stay that folks are occupying those beds. So it's this type of report that once we are through our pilot and have all of that integrated system set up, that we'll be able to report more widely on the behavioral health system, both county and contracted agencies on both slots and bed availability. So I'll stop there, and that's the brief update, and take any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to see if there are any questions. If I could get the screen back. Thank you. That just helps me be able to see everyone. Judge Manley, I know this was an issue that you were particularly interested in, and then I'll come right to you, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Yes, I have one quick question, because we are very interested in this, and that's this. In the example you gave, which I presume is a real example, live data that you collected, you're showing that at, I believe it was Evans Lane, 56 beds, and that some 14 were unoccupied on that day. Can you explain to us why these beds are left unoccupied when people are sitting in jail who have been ordered released to these programs? Is it a question that we just simply do not have any communication system now? Or is it a delay that's due to all the processes that have to take place to have someone moved into a bed? I know I've never understood why we have so many beds open or slots, treatment slots as well at any one time when we have people who have been ordered into them and are waiting to be picked up from the jail.
Yeah, I can start an answer, and I know that there are other folks that are more operationally attuned to the precise admission criteria for some of these beds, like for example in Evans Lane, than I am, and I would hope that perhaps they can weigh in as well. So yeah. So my sort of simple explanation is that.
You mean they're not going to pick it up?
What?
Hey, Bruce, you're not on mute. And I would just ask the staff to make.
I muted him, Madam Chair. Sorry.
No problem. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, and so Margaret, I don't know, and or Gabby may have a better or a more thorough explanation than I. I don't know the admission criteria precisely for Evans Lane, and so I would just kind of, from a general standpoint, say that that not all beds and or slots are certainly the same, right? There's many different admission criteria, funding sources, and other things. Folks that receive referrals from various different places. So a bed is not always is not just a bed, and a slot is not just a slot. So my sense is that the reason that we can't just equate somebody sitting waiting for a bed and a bed that's available just one-to-one is the types of services that are available, the types of environment that they would be going into, locked and unlocked facilities, that there are a lot of, unfortunately, there are a lot of specifiers that and details and nuances that mean that one bed is not just like the others. But I would hope Gabby or Margaret might be able to chime in with a few more specifics and help me if I'm not quite on the right course there.
Hi, good afternoon. So Your Honor, it's actually due to COVID right now that we've had to reduce our census, and we're not able to have every single apartment full. So that is our census right now. Due to COVID, it was actually 32, but we've been raising our census. We've started some antigen testing at Evans Lane, but we've still had some difficult situations to deal with at COVID. So it's related to COVID that we cannot fill every single bed right now. And, we just looked at the capacity report, and actually we only have four beds open right now from when this data set was actually run and submitted for the Reentry Network Committee.
Thank you. Susan?
Thanks so much. This is probably for Gabby as well. I'm interested in a little bit more detail on the expected uses of the dashboards, which agencies ultimately will have access to the information, and of course how we're going to improve access to care. Just for example, is it only going to be used by behavioral health and contracted partners, or could it also be used by entities like emergency departments, reentry, sobering center, jail, discharge, or any other settings to identify available beds or slots?
I can go ahead and start, and I'll ask Brian to speak as well. So for what I know right now, the information will be used through our collaborative courts, Department 60, 61, 62, 63. And we will also be sharing that information with our entire provider network, adult custody health that makes referrals to us, and our reentry center. And Brian, I'll go ahead and defer to you to respond to the rest of the question, please.
Sure. So the direct access into my avatar is that which kind of is congruent with the direct access to these particular dashboards. But once the data is there, we can extract the information, create other dashboards that do not contain PHI, so and thereby make it available to folks in other areas that don't have access into my avatar. I think that does that kind of from a technical perspective answer the question. The dashboards could be de-identified and recreated outside of my avatar. And once we have the data being collected inside of my avatar with all of the CBOs, then that's the extent of the information that would come in. And with de-identifying the data into dashboards that don't contain PHI, we could provide those extra.
What is PHI?
Oh, sorry, protected health information. Identifying data of our clients.
Right, and the example, Brian, that's shown on the slide does seem to show individual patient data. So just to elaborate a little bit about how what privacy protections will be built in.
So the access to that particular report, the dashboards themselves were shown at the previous meeting, and I did not show those in this meeting. So those were more colorful, represent visual depictions of the data all aggregated together. And I did want to make sure that I showed a report that gave very specific, one location. This is the percentage of beds that are occupied in a given moment in time. So that kind of specific detailed information will be available to everyone within BHSD that has my avatar access and can go and run that report.
Thanks. And just one more to Judge Manley's point about being concerned that there are empty beds, and of course all beds are not fungible. Will that information be available as well so that people, the proper entities will immediately know if an available bed is actually a good and appropriate match for the person that needs it?
Go ahead, Gabby.
Yes, that information would be available. We code that information by finding source, so yes.
Great, thank you both.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from my colleagues? So I don't see any public comments on this item. I just wanted to say, one, thank you for bringing this back. And you're right, this was my request to better understand how this is moving forward. And I just will say this to my colleagues. I think one of the most important things we can do relative to services is take the mystery out of their availability, how long people are in them, and what the wait lists look like. Because I think otherwise the situation we're going to be in is we're not able to know what part of the institution's really strained. I'll look forward to the pilot program coming back. And one request I would make is when the report back comes back, our pilot partners, it would be good to get the experience from our nonprofit partners too, because I recognize this has to get through a lot of different partners. And I think that's actually a point that Supervisor Ellenberg was raising, just who can see what is one issue, and then the other, frankly, just kind of as important. I mean, not as important as protecting personal health information, but I think us making sure that we really have a handle on utilization in a much more robust way than we do today is going to really help people understand where the system has strains and stretches and where it doesn't. So thank you for the good work. And and the reason there's a sense of urgency around this is that we're building out a system while we're trying to know what its availability is, and we're making investments, frankly, a little bit blind. All of us are, and we're going to need to do that a little bit so that we can stay ahead of the need, but not really being able to make investments with the kind of precision we need to make them is really critical. And I think the point that Judge Manley raised about knowing how long each part of the system is going to be supporting a particular human being is very important to us being able to right size it. So thank you very much. We have one more comment, Wes?
Yes, I wanted to ask Brian about coordination. I know custody health and behavioral health are two different entities. And I'm wondering about the communication between the two and how that's manifested. I recently, as a chaplain, experienced an inmate who was hitting his head against the wall, and slapping his face, and he was hearing voices. This was not in his information when he came in, and if he ever gets out, will that coordination be there? Because there was no indication that he had a serious mental illness like hallucinatory behavior. And it took me a while to refer to mental health through the chaplaincy. And I'm not sure they resolved the question because I haven't been able to see him because he's in quarantine. And I was asking mental health there to follow up. I'm not sure they have. I've called them, and I've called I let the chaplain know. And I just read in the newspaper yesterday that there's a $10 million lawsuit against the jail for one man who was banging his head, and they had to take out his skull. They had to do surgery on his skull, and he can't talk. And so I'm wondering if there's that communication and consultation within custody health and behavioral health on the outside.
Okay, I thank you for that question. I think I can answer that question. We have weekly case conferences with adult custody health, and also adult custody health has direct access to make a referral to our system of care where we receive the referrals and follow up. Also, we have a coordinated system where adult custody health can let us know if somebody is releasing, and our peer support workers from the reentry center will walk over, bring that person over to the reentry center for immediate assessment and access to services. So we do frequently, like I said, every week meet with adult custody health, and they have direct access to our referral mailbox. So there is frequent communication, or we coordinate something where our providers will actually go into custody health now that we're able to go back in. We've staged in our providers slowly but surely. We have about 5 providers that are going into the jail, and our providers can start that engagement and outreach early on to an individual prior to release. So we are making our way back into the jail.
Oh, please let them contact me so I can identify this inmate.
Yeah, do you want to just connect with me or send me an email, and you and I can touch bases to see if we can coordinate something?
Yeah, I don't think he's getting the appropriate treatment. He's given some medication, but he has to go to somebody and he has to make an appointment to get seen by a counselor. And that's not what it should be after he's been banging his head for so many days. The only reason that he did get referred to mental health is that the guards saw him hitting his head, but my referral never did get through. So those are the things.
Thank you, Wes, and thank you, Gabby, for following up on that. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, staff. We're going to move to the next item. And item 6, this is a report relating to efforts to assist high needs women leaving county jail. And I believe that Dr. Day is going to be presenting on this item.
And that's correct. And good afternoon, everyone. And if I could just say to Wes, if you can contact me, I can follow up for you as well on the patient that you mentioned. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen.
I need your email.
I will forward that to you, sir. Can you see my screen okay?
No, actually. There we go.
Okay, great. All right, and so this is a follow-up to the board meeting in December 2020. So we were going to provide additional information on relating to the high needs women, original 26 women that were identified for this program. And as you know, the program initially started out with the 26 women that were identified, and the goals were to improve access to services, to increase engagement and linkages to treatment, and to have harm reduction. And these are for women specifically that were incarcerated, who had mental health issues, substance use issues, exhibited violent behaviors in and out of jail, and who also may have cycled in and out of jail for readmissions and or recidivism. And so this is a collaborative interagency partnership. The partners include the Office of the Sheriff, the Office of Reentry, Probation, Behavioral Health Services Department, and then Custody Health Services. And my slide is not moving. There you go. Okay, so what we did, from the original cohort of 26 women, we looked at opportunities for improvement. There were several lessons that were learned, and we realized that we needed to, as an interagency partnership, to clarify the criteria for identifying these women, to expand the services to all women who planned discharge dates, and to improve trauma-informed and gender-responsive care, and then also to improve the discharge medication access and to enhance the stakeholder coordination of referrals. Part of this too was with that original 26. We ended up with maybe 4 that were left of that 26, and those 4 chose not to participate. And mind you, the criteria for this program are that women participate voluntarily. And so we did have some members of that cohort that chose not to participate. Part of the change in name, we tried, the Hainese women became a vernacular, if you will, that sort of stigmatized these women. And so part of what we were trying to have a more neutral definition of these women, and so called it the transitional care group. And so these are women that are in the CCW, and we called it the transitional care, because part of this is a transitional care from incarceration back into the community. Part of the work group and part of looking at the interagency, how we coordinated services was to look at a service flow chart that had some clear handoffs, if you will, between agencies and the responsibilities of each of the agencies that are participating. And so we developed what's called here, and this is our service workflow. We developed a service workflow, and that was to, again, enhance the cross-agency collaboration and to more formalize the processes between the different agencies, particularly those agencies for where the services are going to be rendered in the community. And then to identify also those access disconnects and the linkages into the community. Custody Health Services also completed a PDSA, and a PDSA basically is a Plan, Do, Study, Act, a rapid cycle an improvement project on these women, and also identified other opportunities for improvement. Part of that was to shore up the services that were offered while the women were participating inside of Custody Health Services, and these were to wrap around them to better prepare them for reentry into the community and a smoother, more seamless handoff. And those services included psychiatry services, if that was necessary. Of course, the medical and mental health services that they were provided, trauma-informed and trauma treatment, the one-on-one therapies and our group therapies. Some of the women may have been veterans and they participated in our veterans program, crisis services, psychological services, case management, and of course, discharge planning. What we also looked at is not only the services internal, but what are those services in the community for community linkage? And the most used services that we identified were vocational, food needs, clothing, benefits, enrollment, anger management if that was necessary, domestic violence, parenting courses, life skills, and then housing needs. And as mentioned earlier, the 26 women initially went to 4, and the 4 that are left currently with us inside of the jail setting are choosing not to participate. But what we did look at is another phase of those women. And so we identified 41 women who had planned discharges and then offered them to participate in this program. And of those 41 women, 8, all of them were offered trauma services, and all of them were offered to be to go through the trauma services based on what their needs were, and 8 took advantage of that. 32 of those women were part of the psychiatric services, with a psychiatrist being the head of that team. 3 had psychological services by referral, 14 had crisis services, and then 25 of those had wraparound case management services. Referrals for the second cohort into the community, we had 7 referrals that went to the behavioral health services in the community. 6 of the women declined services, and again, this is participation, although this is a rolling program, so they can enter into it at any time. And so they're always offered to participate in the program, but 6 declined. We had 5 where referrals were made into the community, but they never connected in the community. And then we still have 6 currently that remain in custody. And then another 17 were sent to the GROWS program. Okay, and then I was gonna hand off to reentry if they're on. I don't know if anyone is in from reentry. So I'll go ahead and proceed for reentry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Dehan, this is Javier Aguirre with Office of Reentry Services. So we just wanted to highlight the critical services that women that are being discharged from custody health, what services they are able to gain at the reentry center here in San Jose and Gilroy. And a lot of the referrals, the majority of the referrals were sent to the faith-based centers, followed by the medical mobile unit and supportive housing. So key takeaway is not only are we looking at what services they have identified while they're in custody, but when they come to the reentry center, we re-engage them, and we have community workers that can then discuss what their needs are to be while they're in the community setting. Do you have another slide? Yep. And so just as part of the collaboration we have with Custody Health and all the other partners is to make that seamless transition. So while some clients are in custody, they're referred to the GROW, which is a gender responsive opportunity for women program that we established a few years ago and then reinstated it. And so basically our either service navigators will go in custody during the office hours or virtually to meet with the individual before release. And some of the individuals also have an opportunity to be referred to Time for a Change Foundation. Time for a Change Foundation has a home specifically for women in Hayward. And so we have 4 dedicated beds that we can refer clients there. And we work with probation to make sure that if they're on probation, they're allowed to live in Hayward and receive those services. And then one of the things that we do notice is a challenge is upon release. And sometimes some of the clients that are referred to us don't show up to the center for multiple reasons, change their minds, or they just fail to connect with the provider. So something that we want to continue is emphasizing using our community workers to communicate with the women that are being referred to us.
Okay, thank you, Javier. And so currently we still have, of those women, 6 that are still with us, and 3 of those are going to the GROWS, and their referral will be to the GROWS upon their release. 1 is going into the court system in Superior Court 61. 1 is in the process of the discharge plans are being in process and being identified right now in progress. And then we have 1 that is being referred to behavioral health. And those are the 6 of the 41 that are still with us. So we did have some recommendations, and as we're moving forward with working with these women, we had some recommendations. And part of that we were looking at is that, all women who have a planned discharge date, we would like to involve them in gender-informed, gender-responsive care. And as we know, the women program differently. They have more communal living when they're incarcerated. And the literature also shows that women, probably 90% of them, have had some kind of trauma in their background. And that trauma pretty much presents in ways where it will exacerbate, if you will, substance use disorders, domestic violence, criminology and criminal behaviors. Chronic health conditions are also impacted by that, to include substance use and other disorders that we're seeing. We're looking at starting with what's called the adverse childhood exposure. This is a screening where it's been used in the industry, where if we provide that to the women, and they have questions, up to 10 questions. And the literature shows that if women answer 6 of the 10 questions correctly, they have a higher probability of having these problems. And then, of course, how do we wrap around them inside of the custody setting? And so that would include gender-informed, trauma-informed care across all disciplines to include medical, mental health, and dental care. And so we would like to see all women participate in that type of program. Also, we're looking at discharging happening at the point of admission into the program. Typically, how this works is that we get their discharge dates. Sometimes those dates are accurate, sometimes they're not. And so we want to begin, once we assess the women and what their needs are, begin that discharge planning and the connections to the community at the point of admission. And then, of course, we're always working on improving the communications and the referral process and aligning services in the community. I had some meetings with Sherry and Dr. Terrell. We meet often. And so what we're going to do is get a list of all of the referrals in the community and all the contract services and make sure that the resources that when we make referrals are aligned with those, that these are still viable options in the community. We have a build in our health link, and so that as women and or any patient is being discharged, we have several different referrals that we try to link into the community. I want to ensure that those are aligned and they're accurate and they're viable resources that are still active in the community. And then, of course, having more specific, like I said, more specific referrals to gender-based violence for women with violence and parenting needs, substance use, and making sure that we have a more broad referral base to where we're sending these women in the community. Okay. And I have other colleagues on. If we have any questions, we are open to answer.
Thank you, Dr. Day. I'm going to first go to see if there are any speakers from the public who would like to speak on this item, and then I'll come back to my colleagues.
Madam Chair, we currently have 2 speakers.
Great, thank you.
Okay, one moment, please, while we pull the timer up. Our next speaker is Scott Largent. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Got back on the meeting. When women get released from the Santa Clara County Jail, it's a very hard process to watch. You all know I live on Heading down the street from the jail, and watching women fend for themselves when they get out of that, when they get out it's disturbing to watch. I was hoping by now we would have the ability to put them in a vehicle, take them somewhere. You know, I talk about dignified shelters, different places to go. You guys might as well be giving them a can of bear mace, having some hand-to-hand combat maybe taught right out in front of the jail, and prepare them for the environment that they're going to be stepping into. It's shocking to watch what happens to women as they walk up and down Heading. I try to do the best I can. They're preyed upon, and it's very sad that we're allowing this to happen. You know, just get out and go on a field trip and walk. It's very shocking. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Narrowly Campos. I'm unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You will have 1 minute to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Narrowly Campos with Silicon Valley Debug. And some of the issues I wanted to speak on for the part of reentry is we have been in the courts a lot, and we actually have had a couple of folks that we've, women specifically, that we've picked up. And yeah, so some of the issues I think is there's folks that have been released, women that have been released from Milpitas, so there's no actual way for them to get to Milpitas. So that's where our community release project comes in, and we specifically pick up those women and drive them over to reentry to be able to get those services, right, that they might need. And also, I think another issue that has been brought up is the cell phones, because we've taken a couple women to be able to get some receive a phone or get resources to get a phone, and they do not actually have the phone on hand at site. So this is where our community release project has also come in, and we are able now to provide phones for those folks to be connected with those resources.
That concludes our public speakers.
Thank you. I'll now go to my colleagues. I'll begin with Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thanks so much. I appreciate the report, Dr. Day and Supervisor Chavez, of course, for continuing to champion women in our custody who have high levels of need for support. I want to just quickly share a constituent example, which is reminiscent of the situation that Wes Mukiyama was describing, and I think it highlights the real lack of communication at times between departments to ensure that people are receiving the services that they need. I have a constituent whose daughter has been incarcerated, has a serious mental illness, and the mother, who's a very strong, engaged advocate, has had a very, very hard time even locating someone consistent who works with her daughter, who could help her work through a path for moving her daughter to a mental health facility. And my concern is that this really isn't an atypical example of incarcerated women whose needs just aren't being met. The GROW program, as I understand it, is aimed at supporting people with their reintegration outside of custody. We really need to have confidence that it's operating really in accordance with the stated goal of providing really truly individualized supports for the clients through trust-based and consistent casework. So what I'd like to do is kind of press for some more specifics here. Today's report offers, by definition, a narrow scope of reentry programs that are offered to women leaving county custody. And I understand why many women are excluded from the GROW program to prevent casework overlap and such. But I'm curious how the program relates to the services and case management that are offered to the women who are not included in the GROW program. And I wonder if maybe Dr. Day could give me a little bit more understanding of the intended purpose of the program, what the outcomes we're monitoring to determine success, and who at heart is running the GROW program.
And I believe that's behavioral health has that information on the GROW program.
Okay.
Reentry.
Great. Thanks. Is Sherry on?
I believe it's under reentry.
Oh, reentry. Oh, Javier, thanks.
Yes. So the GROW, the Gender for Responsive Opportunity for Women,
Right.
is a collaboration between probation, custody health, the sheriff, Office of Women's Policy, and Office of the Support of Housing. And so I always let folks know that depending on, there's different paths of individuals receiving discharge efforts while they're in custody and a warm handoff. So individuals that have been identified needing mental health or substance use treatment, they are going to be formally hand off from custody to behavioral health. And so either they're on the JAC list as part of Department 61 and 62 or one of the departments, or as Dr. Day mentions and Gabby mentioned, there could be a direct referral to behavioral health. For the individuals that are not being processed through the behavioral health route, who don't have a high need for mental health or substance use treatment, the staff for custody health and the staff for the sheriff can refer them to GROW. That's where our service navigators come in. And our service navigators are the ones that are working with them, could work with them in custody and in the community. So
Javier, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure I'm clear. So with the women that will fall under GROW, their primary needs are not necessarily behavioral or clinical, but more likely housing, social services, parenting, things like that. Is it custody health that is still the lead partner inside the jail engaging with the women, or are folks from reentry or other CBOs actually given access to the women while they're in custody to work with them? And I'm thinking about that from a trusted voice perspective.
Well, I always feel like custody health is probably the rehab officers under the sheriff. They're the ones who are working closely with the women in custody daily, weekly, or monthly. So they know the clients much more than any of our providers can or any of our departments outside can do. So we rely on custody health and the rehab officers under the sheriff to identify what paths that the individual should take. Once we are engaged, and that's where our navigators come in. I always feel like we don't want to overburden a client with 10, 20 services at time of exit. So if an individual must have mental health or substance use treatment, that's a priority. We will rely on behavioral health to then make the referrals to other community services. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to overburden a client with having them to find a job, having them to find housing, having them to go into treatment, having them get connected to faith-based, primary health. So our key is stabilization. And the stabilization is primary health and behavioral health needs.
Got it. That's helpful. I'm thinking about why there might be a drop-off between women who agree to programs and who show up there. And are public defenders involved, or social services agency, public health, faith-based organizations? Again, I'm just trying to troubleshoot and think about why there's a fall off, and how the department might make better connections and give more access to women while they are in custody, if that would be helpful.
I think 2 years ago, we had an opportunity working with the Office of the Sheriff and Custody Health to interview women in custody, and we identified those that had gone through the GROW system. And by and far, most of the women would say, you provided all the services. It's just that I wasn't ready to connect, or I went back and to the wrong crowd. I went back to my old friends, and I was back into the system. And so, like I always rely on what Bruce Copley has always said, it takes 7 or 8 or 10 times for engagement. So that's something that we always struggle, and we just work, like you mentioned, who are the trusted individuals. I potentially feel like our community workers, lived experience individuals that have that experience are probably the best. So we have an example with one individual here that we now do virtual presentations. Formerly incarcerated, now she's a community worker here at the Reentry Center, fully engaging our clients. And I think that's something that we will value as we move forward.
Thanks. I really am very, very supportive of the work of the Reentry Center, and I'm interested in what a reframing of the services offered might look like. I'm looking forward to continuing to work together, to identify pathways toward building relationships with those that are incarcerated that really responds directly to their expressed needs and is based in consistency, beginning, as Dr. Day noted, and I really appreciate it, as soon as they are booked into the jail and remaining after they are released. I want to just make a couple of asks for the next meeting, please, so that we can further flesh this out, and maybe there's some broad discussion amongst all of the partners here who are so deeply engaged in this work. Since it's clear that GROW is one of several types of post-release planning and case management programs, I would love to see a table or a chart that lays out information on all of the programs offered to both women and men, so that we can understand the overall landscape of the programs. And the table should include eligibility criteria, services provided, the lead agency and supporting providers, annual funding and source, the number of individuals eligible and enrolled, and any outcome data tracked. I know that was a lot, which is why I'm glad that the meetings are recorded and we can follow up, Javier, with you afterward as well. I'd also like to see a summary of any data from prior needs assessments or surveys or intake forms, or really any other form of feedback from any of these programs that has otherwise been collected by reentry services or pretrial or the public defender or the sheriff or any others that could help us understand the service needs, the priorities, and the perspectives of people incarcerated for how they can be supported once they are released.
Thank you, Susan. Brad?
Oh, me? Me? Just go.
Me?
Yes, Cora, please.
I just would like to thank you for this report, and I would also like to congratulate this body because of the vision actually, into inviting the faith-based organization on the table. I think this report today just highlights the vitality of that partnership. And to Susan's point, to the extent that it's appropriate and timely, I would like us to continue that partnership or even strengthen it if possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Cora. Christina?
Thank you. I just wanted to just make a couple of comments as far as service goes. So I'm here on behalf of the faith-based reentry centers, but I also, our agency, Breakout Prison Outreach, also does, we're also service navigators. And on June 24th, our agency as service navigators started going regularly in custody to begin recruiting and pre-planning, pre-release plans with men and women at Elmwood. We've had a great response in men, and there's been a lot of referrals coming from men. But since June 24th, we've only had one opportunity to do an in-person presentation to the women's units. I'm not quite sure what the reasons are, and neither are my staff. We debrief every day after they complete their work. We're there from 8:30 in the morning till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, every Thursday faithfully. So we're there, we're ready. We have received some women referrals, but given the report and the amount of women that are in need of services, I think that our services could be taken advantage of a lot more. Both my male and female service navigators that are working in custody, they both have lived experience. So, you know, they're very approachable, very relatable, and we're there and we're ready to accept these referrals. So I know that it's been very challenging to get into the facility to provide the services, but now we're there. And again, we're there faithfully every Thursday, all day. And there is another service navigator program that's there as well. So I know that we are really doing our part and trying to make those services available to both the men and women that are in Elmwood.
Thank you, Christina. And as one of the, I'm going to catch your comments as one of the follow-ups that I'm going to be requesting. This has actually been a work in progress for a while. So some of what you're saying, I want to make sure we capture. I'm going to go to Molly and then to Damien, and then, yeah, and Wes, then I'll come to you because they had their hands up first. That's why I'm going to them in the order that I saw them. Thanks. Molly?
Thank you. I couldn't help but notice in both Dr. Day's and Javier's presentations that we've lost a lot of people who we were trying to connect with services. And one of the things Javier mentioned was losing people upon discharge. And it's long been a problem to try and get services available for people being released because we often don't know what time people are getting out. And we have nighttime releases in the middle of nowhere. For all intents and purposes, Milpitas is the middle of nowhere for women in the middle of the night. And so I think it really would help us to go back and take a look at why it is so hard to get a specified time for release. And obviously we don't want to hold people in custody longer than they are legally required to be there. On the other hand, it's really not safe to let people out in the middle of the night. And I've personally talked to several women who had to walk from Elmwood, and it takes a long time to get to Pullman homeless encampment. We should have services posted up. So we're losing folks on the way to the services, and I think there is some low-hanging fruit we could get after to try and fix this problem. So perhaps a presentation from the sheriff and the sheriff's office about how we could improve, how we can improve dedicated release times to improve outcomes. So thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Damon? Oh, I'm sorry, Damon and then Wes.
And very quickly, I was going to ask to kind of dovetail on what Supervisor Ellenberg mentioned, which is also who and what agencies can make referrals to those service programs. Because I think, for instance, we have always have a lot of new public defenders joining the office, and educating them to the extent that they can trigger service request and navigation services for our clients, especially as we're expanding our PAR early contact unit, because I think our social workers need that information kind of re-educated. They need to be re-educated in those services or those opportunities, and understanding when we can pick up the phone on behalf of our clients and start triggering that planning as much as possible, because sometimes clients just won't take the initiative, and we certainly can nudge them and help them along the way. And I think we'd like to play that role. So it might be an offline conversation, or might naturally dovetail into Supervisor Ellenberg's request.
Yeah, and I will just say that one of the recommendations I wanted to make was to engage the county executive's office in coordination, because what's clear to me is that the coordination piece to really diving into this is going to be critical. And just as a point of information for all of you, initially this was intended to be focused on a small group of women that were coming in and out of the jail over and over and over and over and over again. So the change the staff has made, and I understand why, really deviates from the initial purpose. And one of the reasons I'm just mentioning that is that it may make as we think about how to move forward, and I'm going to just give Miguel a couple minutes to think about this as more people speak. I think that I think we have to make a decision a little bit about what the program's going to cover, who and why, and then be able to also align the services. Because I think a little bit of this is that we started in one place, we got to another, probably for very good reasons, but it's going to require multi-departmental coordination. So Wes?
Okay, I've been in the jail system since 2009, 12 years. And I have seen a lot of changes. I was on the Blue Ribbon Commission. What I'm not, and I have tried to, when people get out at midnight, try to get a cab for them to go to the shelter that they need to go. I had to do that. They speak more frankly with me as a spiritual chaplain than they do with social workers, because social workers represent government. The first thing that they think of when they get out is, I want to be free of everything. They want to get out. They don't care who they see. They just want to be free. And that's where I thought what was proposed a few years back, a 90-day discharge program where trust can be connected. And Gabby, your organization should be in there. And when they get out, they should hold them by the hand, or at least talk to them and say, I'll be here. You can get to me anytime you fall down, but I'll be here and we can work something out. But you need that personal connection. Referrals don't work. You just refer to an agency. That doesn't work, because even the reentry center, which is across the street, they can walk 100 feet to get there, but they won't go there unless you really have someone in this 90-day discharge program that they can trust, or if they don't want to see them, that they'll still be there when they get out, even later. And you need to get the families involved. You need to see how the families see that and bring them in. And I don't see any family involvement at all. There's no discussion with the families on how they can help. That's my comment.
Thank you. Christine?
As well as spiritual advisors, yeah? well as the chaplains. The chaplains and re-entry spiritual leaders, they don't talk. They don't talk. There's no connection. And I've been on the re-entry committee for them, on the board for them, and there's no connection.
Thank you, Wes. Christine, then Susan, then the sheriff.
Just briefly, I wanted to ask if, in adding on to what Supervisor Ellenberg is requesting, when you're looking at the programs that are available through reentry for both men and women, if we could get a little review of the criteria for the eligibility of the various programs, because I'm often confused on who can get what, who qualifies for what, and who is excluded from what for whatever reasons. So that would be helpful to me if that could be folded in somehow. Thanks.
Thank you. Susan?
Thanks. I really appreciate hearing the comments of all of our colleagues here. Wes, I think you really nailed it with the trust and access piece. It is challenging when if custody, health, and sheriff are the gatekeepers. I do think that potentially breaks down some opportunities to build connections and relationships. And I'm appreciate that Sheriff Smith is speaking next, and I would love to hear some thoughts about how we can increase access to these trusted non-governmental partners who can come in, who aren't part of the incarceration or the penal system, who can have a different relationship, and who also not only can build that kind of trust, but can consistently support the same clients both inside and outside of custody. I think that continuity piece is really key. And to Damon's comment, I absolutely agree that the public defenders should be referrers. I think that they are probably the most consistent voices in working with their clients in custody, and certainly, at least relative to some of the other players in the justice system, certainly have the most trust. And the end goal, of course, is not checking and saying, well, we made the referrals or we tried, but really partnering these struggling, vulnerable women with a human being that will get them through to these next pieces. I'm also interested, Sheriff Smith, in what we can possibly do to not discharge people in the middle of the night, or at a bare minimum, if we do, can we also commit to ensuring that they get to wherever they need to go safely and not be left on their own outside the door. Thanks to everybody for your comments. And again, to Cindy for really pulling this together and for pulling in the county exec's office. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Susan. Lori?
Thank you. I know I have about 3 or 4 things that I want to address from the speakers, but for Supervisor Ellenberg, the increased access to non-government entities in the jail. I'm sitting here with Captain Duran, and we have 31 different classes right now. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who do have access to the jail, but we still really are operating under COVID restrictions. We're trying to do as much remote learning as we can do at this time. We're concerned, as the public is, with the current outbreak. We've managed to keep our numbers very, very low as compared to like Contra Costa County that's reporting over 100 recently. So we still are in a COVID time. And for Christine Yee, as we will look further into why you were denied coming in, but Captain Duran will contact you and talk about how he can get you set up with the remote learning. Do you want to add anything else to that, Captain? And then I'll talk about the night releases.
Yeah, definitely. We just wanted to let you know that there are ways that we've been teaching using the remote learning platform. So that's something that we're willing to work with you on to see if we can provide, as long as you have some flexibility, because we're limited as far as equipment goes. We are teaching in multiple areas, trying to bring programming to the men and women. So if we could just slide you into a number of any available slots in regards to a time that works for you, then we can help and facilitate those interviews for you.
Okay. And if I can also, do you have any comments for Captain Duran? And if not, I'll talk about night releases.
Go ahead, and why don't you talk about these? This is kind of the focal point right now, so thank you.
So as far as night releases, we've had many, many conversations. I know with you, your office, Supervisor Chavez, and also with Supervisor Ellenberg about releasing people at the same time or not doing it during nighttime hours. I've also had conversations with Molly O'Neill, the public defender. We are more than happy to release only during nighttime or during daytime hours. We would need cooperation from the court to be able to extend their release time to daylight, which may mean the next day. And also the one thing that is problematic on that is the zero bail, because when we accept the zero bail, then they're immediately released from custody. We no longer have the authority to hold them. That would be something we'd have to work out with our justice partners. And what worked very well was for reentry and or the public defender's office to have 24/7 someone in the lobby that could assist. The one thing that we do offer is very often when someone comes into custody, their cell phone battery is dead by the time they get out. We have charging stations and we allow them to sit in the lobby until daylight hours if they want. But if it is the preference of this group and all stakeholders to hold someone actually in the jail until daylight hours, we're certainly willing to do that, but it would require cooperation with the court and also looking at how we handle zero bails. But that's something that has been talked about a long time. But you know, some of the obstacles I have described, but if that's something that is the will, we're more than happy.
So just folks, we have a few more people. What I want to do is to speak. I want to have Pastor Williams speak, and then this has been a really good conversation. I want to make some recommendations about next steps because there are lots of moving parts to it. Pastor?
Yes, good afternoon. Faith-based was the alternative to just walking 100 feet across the street to reentry. Some did not want to be connected. Many don't want to be connected with governmental organizations and those kinds of things. So the faith-based centers were the alternative for the personal touch and also the relational touch and the ongoing relationship. And that's the purpose of faith-based reentry, to be involved. And part of it is family reunification and, you know, of course, housing and jobs and all those things that are common needs. But from the very beginning, and I've been involved with reentry before there was reentry, when we first started it, and we breathed the whole idea to reentry, we wanted to have an alternative, a both and rather than an either. Than just one, because many don't want to be in contact with those who are governmental or those who are involved with the system, so to speak, and that kind of thing. So the relational part, we try to take on and do take on and have for years since we've been organized. And so we just wanted you to know that that alternative is always there and presented. And as I always say, we're known as the bleeding hearts of reentry.
Thank you. For those of you who've been around, you know, Pastor Tony Williams, this is an expression of his love for others, this, even the committee we sit on today. So thank you for that leadership.
Yes, I've known him for a while. I've nominated him as a hero, so I know.
So here's what I would like to recommend. I do think that there are lots and lots of moving pieces to this. And Miguel, I'm going to ask that the county executive's office pull together the partners to really work through this body of work. And I just want to make a request to my colleagues that we kind of divide the work up into two big buckets. One is that I do not want to lose the focus on folks who re-enter over and over again, because what we're really talking about here is the point that Sheriff Smith raised, which I think is a really interesting one, about what happens when someone is released on bail. That's a challenging issue, but what we're really focused on for this particular conversation is folks that we have in custody. We've had them in custody for a bit. They're getting out of custody, and how do we handle that? This issue about that Sheriff Smith that you raised, that I think is that was raised, I think by some, was the issue about when people are discharged. I mean, I'm sorry, when our partnership with the courts and what the courts require. I think that's actually even a different issue. I mean, you've just explained how complicated this is. I think Sheriff Smith is the point I'm trying to raise there. So what I want to recommend is that Miguel pull folks together to take a look at how we can do a better job of coordinating, that we start to move that forward. On a separate note, I want to request that the Board of Supervisors, in partnership, Sheriff Smith, with you and with the presiding judge at the court, and with both the district attorney and the public defender, have a conversation with the courts about the issue that you've raised, because this has been kind of going on for years and years and years. And I know you have, in some respects, been put in the middle of this debate, and really we need to have this conversation with all parties. And frankly, I'm sorry, Chief Garnett, I should include you in that too. So that's a body of work, again, that I want to work with the county exec's office on, because that's very important to our partnership with the county exec's office. We have a long list of follow-up. I'm going to recommend that it may make sense for this, that we'll work with staff to find out the best time for this to come forward, because Supervisor Ellenberg, some of the issues that you've raised, and just making sure we have all that research and all that information and just put it on an agenda when we really can dive into it. You can see how much discussion we got on a subset of this topic. When we pulled it all together, it's going to be an even bigger discussion. So we'll write something up on behalf of all of your comments. We do that along with the clerk's office. We'll get that to Miguel, put a work plan together, and then have something come back to this committee in chunks that we can take it on and give some feedback to. Is that all right with everyone?
Well,
Christine, I'm sorry, Wes, I'm going to come back to you. I just want to, I saw there were 2 hands up before you, and I just want to get to them, and I'll get to you next. Christine Clifford, did you have a comment on this?
No, I just forgot to take my hand down, sorry.
Oh, sorry. All right, Sheriff Smith.
Yes, very, very briefly. The issue of when someone is time served and we know when they're being released, they're actually eligible to be released anytime during that day when their final sentence is. So technically we could release them at midnight, but what we do is we hold them until 8 a.m. So that has been a long-standing practice for those that are time served. It's the problematic ones in the middle of the night that are cleared for release. So that one we can take off the table.
So Sheriff Smith, I may have said this backwards. Thank you for reminding me. On the time served, that's because we know when the date is, but isn't there sometimes that the courts, that you're waiting till the end of the day to know what the courts are going to do, irrespective of the bail issue? That's the group I thought we were referring to.
Yes, so the time served was what I was talking about. Those are people who have been served a sentence and they have a time to get out. The court, when the court releases them and we get the final court documents, because it's a paper system, very often, especially during winter months when there's no daylight savings time, we don't even get the papers until it's dark. And if they're ordered release from the court, then that has to be processed within that day. So if it's dark out, we have to let them out at dark unless the bench would say release them during daylight hours, which would mean the next day. So 2 different things. One is time served and the other one is a court release.
And then maybe, okay. And then and I'm understanding that, and that we'll focus on that. I think the reason I was focused on the discharge, where we know the date, is that frankly, when we originally talked about this program relative to to women who were in higher need of services, my expectation is we would know their release date. We'd be working with them 90 days out at the very minimum of their release date. And the reason I'm just pointing that out is more just to say that's where the conversation started when we started on this initiative many years ago. All these other issues are really important and ones we need to wrestle to the ground that may or may not be attached exactly to the program. But Sheriff Smith, the other issue that you were raising is that if somebody is released without bail, could you say what you meant by that? Was that in the second bucket of being discharged on whatever day?
Because we have zero bail now, a bail bondsman or a family does not have to show up to post anything. We just write the zero bail receipt. And once that occurs, we no longer have the authority to hold them. Now we could postpone writing that zero bail receipt, but I don't believe that's the, I don't want to speak for the public defender, but I know that when they're eligible to be released on zero bail, it's been the desire to release them as quickly as possible, even if it's during nighttime hours. That's why I think there's a further conversation with the stakeholders, including Molly O'Neill from the Public Defender's Office.
Got it. And we'll put that into its own body of work. Okay, Wes, and then Supervisor Ellenberg, and then I'm going to wrap this up because we actually have one more item. Wes?
Javier and Gabby and Dr. Day and Sheriff Smith and reentry, we need to get a working definition of a warm handoff. You mentioned, Javier, you mentioned warm handoff. I want to know what that means because I don't see that. The only person that really responded to that was Miss Campos, who said they actually go out and get the women and they drive them somewhere. That's what I'm talking about is a warm handoff, is to make sure that they're connected when they're released, and even before they're in the other things that would, if they don't go to jail, how do they get a warm handoff? What Judge said about that too. So warm handoff is a key to this, I think. Warm handoffs and really make that work. A working definition. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Wes. Susan, you have the last word.
All right, I'll make it quick and hopefully powerful. I don't want to see us turn zero bail into a reason to hold people longer. I'm not even certain that people need to be booked in the jail on a zero bail offense. Is this something that can be just done in the field so that people are not having to come into jail in the first place? Obviously, that's safer for them. That may be a whole different conversation or something that I need to learn more about, but I want it to be addressed because I'm concerned to hear $0 bail being held up as a barrier to getting people out of jail rather than an asset.
Yeah, I think it's really worth a longer discussion on all of that. So I appreciate that. Thank you all very much. We're going to move to our last item, and this is to receive a report from the Office of Reentry Services relating to the participation in the Government Alliance on Race and Equity efforts and the creation of the Reentry Equity Action Plan.
Good afternoon. I'm Javier, Officer of Reentry Services. Do you guys see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, thank you.
Just move the slide up. So Office of Reentry Services collaborated with our Reentry Real team. So it was an effort with many of our stakeholders, staff that are part of the Reentry Resource Center here in San Jose, CBOs, our community-based organizations, individuals, our Lived Experience Advisory Board, and also community stakeholders. On behalf of that team, we did a lot of trainings with public health, and we learned a lot from GARE, the Government Alliance on Race and Equity. And based on all that effort, we have this strategy and a draft equity action plan. What's very important to note here is we have to take ownership of our institution's historic and current role in creating racial disparities. And it's important for us to scrutinize our policies and procedures, just as we were just discussing the discharging of women in custody or from custody to the community. There's a lot of work to be done in terms of identifying the system that potentially can be harming an individual to a system that is repairing the individual's services. A key component in working in this strategy in race and equity is to visualize key issues and disaggregate data by race. And so I just have some exhibits here on terms of what is already publicly available. So these disparities that exist in our system are based from the district attorney's race and prosecution 2020 update report. The REAL team develops objectives in looking at how do we identify equity. And for us, equity is defined as a fair treatment, access, and opportunity and investment for all people, while at the same time striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented full participation of some groups. And as you can see here in terms of this data component, looking at the general population of the county based on race and ethnicity, and then looking at the number of individuals that come to the San Jose Reentry Center, jail releases, and active probationers. So that kind of gives you an understanding of where some racial disparities exist in our systems. And then GARE really reminds the stakeholders to understand data and as to what it tells us about who is being affected. We also have to understand using the data as to who is being affected. So here, for example, we ask all of our clients that come to the reentry center if you're unemployed, employed, disabled, or employed. And we look at it based on race. And then we kind of started looking at countywide unemployment rates. And are there some disparities between one race compared to the county unemployment rate? We also look at education. We strongly believe that education, a lot of our clients come in without a high school diploma, lack education resources when they were growing up as a child and as in middle school or high school. And so how do we provide a direct pipeline from reentry clients to college students? And we had the very great opportunity to work with the sheriff and her staff to create vocational and educational programming in custody to start folks in community colleges and in university college courses to then move forward in the community. I'm really excited that we have a great relationship with San Jose City College in creating our peer mentor program, where individuals that with lived experience can be enrolled in a community college class here at the Reentry Center to get that experience to then work as an intern in one of our community-based organizations or here at the Reentry Center. And then just recently, our high school diploma class with the Office of the County Office of Education, we've expanded that program to include a family justice education coordinator. And the idea really is to look at our clients' families' education needs and really make that connection with folks that are in custody in the community. So while students, our clients are taking high school classes for their high school diploma or GED or community colleges, we also try to improve the work with our students and their children. And so the Equity Action Plan really is focused on staff training, information packets, resource packets, discussion, and surveys. And as Supervisor Allenberg earlier mentioned about having a document about all the various services that we offer, we have so much of that on websites or flyers, but I think it's so important just to have it condensed and make it so easy for the clients to understand how to navigate that, because it is a complex system that we have created. And also looking at discussion and speaker series. So we've had some reentry roundtable with some of our community organizations and experts. And later this month, we'll have a roundtable with experts talking about the income gap, the wealth gap based on race. So once we started, as we implement the Equity Action Plan with all of our stakeholders, what is that going to do? What is the expected outcomes and the results? So we expect all of you at the Reentry Network and all of our partners know exactly the services that we provide. provide a streamlined access to the services for our clients. But most importantly is train our clients and our staff, to understand racial disparities that exist in the system. And so in the ledge file, you have a work plan as to how we're going to go about that and doing that. So I leave you with this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. When he was giving it at a speech during the boycott of workers in a community. And he basically said, we need leaders not in love with money, but in love with justice, not in love with publicity, but in love with humanity. And I feel that this equity action plan is really working with all of our stakeholders to put a faith in our community and faith in our clients. And so with that, I'm open for questions and comments.
Supervisor Ellenberg, I'm going to ask you to begin the conversation and call on our colleagues. I apologize, I need to step off, and then to ask you also if you would adjourn the meeting after this item.
Sure, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Javier, for the great report.
Thank you.
Thanks. Javier, I really appreciate the report as an example of a county department applying the GARE framework. And I think that this is really a good example in the spirit, again, of Supervisor Chavez's call for the county organization and all departments to implement the GARE framework. I was struck in reviewing the report really by the limitations of the GARE model, which is intentionally, I understand, generic to apply across government agencies and tends to focus on organizational culture and operational and policy changes to roll back some of the significant institutional racism that's baked into all of our departments and across our organization. But when it comes specifically to reentry services, that has a direct charge to serve residents that have been subjected to trauma and systemic racism in the carceral system, there seems to me to also be a higher charge to address racism and injustice in a broader way than perhaps the GARE framework facilitates. I know we're running against the end of our meeting today, but I'd like to see a future discussion from this group as a whole on the question of how reentry and partners together can mobilize for systemic and systematic change. I think that there's a really unique opportunity here for the departments to work together. I know that our GARE model has been one department at a time, but if we look at all of the reentry partners, I think that there's some really significant opportunity here. It's hard to talk about equity in this context. We can certainly talk about disproportionality, but if we start with a premise that this entire system is inflicting more trauma than justice, what do we need to do to really reshape that from the ground up? So I would love to just propose that as a conversation, if not for today, then perhaps for an upcoming meeting when we can really give some significant time to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Wes.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Javier if you would be part to lead that working definition of warm handoffs.
Yes, we'll definitely provide a definition on the warm handoff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? And yeah, Erin, go ahead, please.
So just kind of building on what you said, Supervisor, because I appreciate what you have and the GARE framework, but what we're looking at is a system that's better informed, not a system that's fixed. And so we still have to look at the disparities of who we are bringing into the justice system. And I get that with reentry and a whole lot of what we're doing is after they come in, and we need to do the very best we can then, but we cannot ignore the fact of the disparity of who we're bringing into the system.
Absolutely agree, and I hope I didn't convey otherwise.
Not at all. I was just
absolutely agree with you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Thank you.
Any other comments? I'm trying to look at both screens here. Do we have any public speakers, Dave?
We have no public speakers, Supervisor.
All right, then I think that wraps us up for today. Javier, again, thank you for the report, and thank you so much generally for being a leader for bringing GARE into our county as a whole. I think it's really critical work for all of us across departments. So with that, I will adjourn to the next meeting, the date of which I do not have in front of me. Dave, do you have that?
Let me take a look at the agenda, Madam Chair. Hold on one moment, please. The next meeting is scheduled for October 13th at 2 p.m.
There you go. Thank you very much to all of you. Take care. See you soon. We are adjourned. And Dave and Jill, thank you.
Thank you.
Recording stopped.